What's good people? Immersive here. Hope all is well on your end. Right now it is September in South Florida. It's around the Labor Day holiday, and that means absolutely nothing with regards to temperature changes. We're probably going to have 2 more months of heat and hurricanes, and then possibly in November we'll get a bit of reprieve as temperatures may drop a little bit. So in the meantime, hope you're doing well. If you're new to the channel, I go by Immersive. I love talking about travel, photography, videography, and just overall living a complete life. I love to travel. Recently, my wife and I went on an anniversary trip to Colombia, and a lot of people who I've spoken with recently have been asking about how the trip was, what did I like about it, was it safe to go, and we ultimately ended up going to Cartagena and Medellin, which were beautiful cities, and each of them have their pros and their cons. So if you're interested in going to those cities, I wanted to break down kind of which one I preferred, what I liked about each one, and just some basic tips if you're planning on going in the future. So first, why did we want to go to Colombia? We have quite a few friends that are from Colombia, and they've always said good things about it naturally, right? But living in Miami, you're so close to all these South American nations that it's not that difficult to get there. So summer is the peak time of travel, just in general. Going to Europe was fairly expensive. Going to Southeast Asia, Asia in general was quite expensive. We looked at Bali. We'd already been to Italy, so we wanted to do something a little different. And the thought of Colombia came up, and my wife actually looked up the ticket prices, and they weren't too bad. So we just decided, might as well. Obviously, there's a sketchy pass with Colombia, but we wanted to give it a shot, and it was a great idea. Also, the flights there were direct flights. You can fly from, I think, Orlando and Miami. Will get you direct to most Colombian nations on Avianca. And we decided on going to Cartagena first because there was an all-inclusive resort that wasn't too far from the city, and we wanted to celebrate our anniversary in style. So that's exactly what we did. We chose Cartagena and Medellin instead of Bogota and Cali as well, just because we heard later once we were there that Cali had an uptick of violence, a lot of cartels there in Cali. And then Bogota had more of like a financial center for the country, so not as much for tourists to do. I mean, your mileage may vary. You might go there, have a great time, not have any issues at all, but that's just what we had heard. And out of an abundance of caution, we decided just to stick to 2 cities that we'd heard a lot about, and we figured those 2 would be pretty safe if we were safe traveling, practice safe travel. So like I mentioned, we flew direct on Avianca from Miami. If you've flown Spirit before, you've basically flown Avianca. The setup is pretty much the same. You're packed pretty tightly in there. You don't have a lot of seat pitch. The seat pitch is quite narrow. We made a mistake. Our seats were in the 4th row, and I'm a big guy. I'm almost 6'3", and it was extremely tight in the seats. So what we did for the return flight is we got exit row seats, because the exit row seats ended up giving us just the regulations. They give you more seat pitch. The seats don't recline, and I don't think any of the seats on the Avianca A320s recline, but you at least get more legroom, which is imperative for me. The only restriction that's different from like an American carrier is that for the window seats, you have to be able to speak Spanish fluently. The middle and aisle seats, you could know English, but for the window seat, you had to be fluent in both Spanish and English. So our first stop was Cartagena. And just a disclaimer, we stayed at an all-inclusive resort called Dreams Caravana, which is about a 20 to 25 minute drive outside of the core of the city. We thought the property was nice, if not slightly dated. It was showing its age. Open air, so you got to feel the breeze that was coming off of the Caribbean Sea. But it was extremely humid in there, and you can see just a little bit of wear and tear, nothing crazy. The service was really good there, but the food, in my opinion, was average at best. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was relatively bland, nothing to write home about. Also, I feel like our experience of being in Colombia was a bit muted because we stayed at an all-inclusive resort and didn't get the full experience, maybe in an Airbnb, a hostel, or maybe even a hotel that was in the city. So one thing about Cartagena, if you've never been before, learn how to say no gracias very early on. The first day after we got in, we took a cab into the city, and within a couple minutes of arriving there, I don't even think it was a full minute, somebody was asking us to buy something. it felt like everybody was selling something, and it got old really, really quick. It didn't matter. Everything was being sold. There was drinks, there was food, there were fire ants for some reason, there was jewelry, emeralds were being sold, lemonade, artwork. All this stuff was offered by multiple people multiple times, and it was annoying. It really was annoying. Also, the climate there is extremely warm and humid throughout the entirety of the year. So people ask, when's the best time to go? I don't know. I really don't know what to tell you. I think in the winter months, and by winter I mean like January, February, they may experience a slightly cooler time of the year, but it's right. It's a tropical atmosphere. It's right on the Caribbean, so you always get that warm breeze coming on shore, and it just felt humid and oppressive all day. It's just like Miami, probably a little bit worse because there really isn't a strong breeze coming on, and it was extremely humid the whole time. I'm sweating a whole lot. It wasn't the best experience, I will say that. I like comfort, and that environment was not comfortable from a climate standpoint. We walked mostly around the walled city in Cartagena and Getsemani, which is an area just to the south, and the main tour that we ended up doing was to San Basil de Palenque, which is a pretty cool experience. This was the first settlement of escaped slaves in Colombia, and it's still intact today. They get some funding from the government to help maintain the history, as well as build up not just the cultural component, but also the infrastructure, the water, schools. It's a form of reparations that's in place at the governmental level, and it was cool to see traditions that were intact from their African heritage and how they mix it with some of the Colombian heritage as well. It was about 90 minutes from Cartagena on a bus. That was the tour was run by Experience Rio Cartagena. For me personally, it was a dope experience, and our guides gave some pretty detailed breakdowns of the socioeconomic differences that are in Colombia. And to be honest, it felt a lot like what we see here in the US. If you're a history buff, you would really enjoy. However, just like most things in Cartagena, even on the tours, you're being sold something. So some pros of Cartagena are that it's extremely walkable city, especially the walled area, the old city, and Getsemani. It's easy to get around on foot. It gave me New Orleans vibes for some reason. You know, it has a lot of colorful architecture. It's older, but still looks very, I guess vintage is the best word for it. If you love history, you'll love Cartagena because the historical monuments were everywhere. The only thing you have to look out for when walking around the city is the kind of patchwork sidewalks. There are holes littered everywhere, so you don't want to twist an ankle while you're on vacation. Some of the cons about Cartagena were the fact that it's hot and humid all year. I've already touched on that a little bit. The beaches there were not very good, in my opinion, and I guess I'm a little spoiled being in Miami. But the beaches were kind of dusty looking. Dusty. I mean, the sand was like super brownish, and they're not bad, they're just nothing special. And the street vendors were just really aggressive and frankly annoying throughout the day. And like I said, no gracias is your favorite term. While you're in Cartagena, if you want to buy something, I'm not saying don't buy anything, just know that they're going to push you to buy something. If you want to do so, just negotiate, because they do start high, but there's nothing wrong with negotiating. Paying a fair price for something, and don't get ripped off. So would I visit Cartagena again? I mean, I probably would if I was with a large group of people. If I'm going on like a bachelor party, a wedding, a group event, I would go back to Cartagena and I'd stay within the city. But if it was just a repeat, like, oh, where in Colombia would you like to go in South America, I wouldn't pick Cartagena again. And I mean, my experience could have been a little bit jaded because like I said, we stayed at a resort that was away from the city. Maybe if I was in the mix more and got to see any bars or restaurants or clubs and whatnot, then possibly I'd look into going again. But it would have to be, like I said, with a group, a large group. For that reason, everything that I talked about before, I give Cartagena a 6.5 out of 10. Not awful, slightly below average for me, but a cool city to visit nonetheless. All right, so that's Cartagena. Before I go to Medellin, I want to take this time to ask you, if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, like the video, comment, share, subscribe to the channel if you like stuff like this, where I just talk about the places I've been, my experiences, travel tips and tricks, and then I'm gonna try to incorporate some videography and photography along with the travel component. So if something like this is of interest to you, be sure to consider subscribing. You know, there's nothing wrong with subscribing to a new channel. I'm trying to grow it anyway. Trying to work with the algorithm, you know? Then we were heading to Medellin, and we took Avianca again, domestic flight out of Cartagena. And the view was, I have to give it to it, Colombia is a beautiful country from a natural standpoint. The oceans were beautiful. The landscapes going over the lush forests, coming into the mountain range of the Andes and the Abura Valley of Medellin was stunning. And it's a really pretty country. I love how diverse the geography is. There are some deserts, I think, in the western or the eastern parts of Colombia, I believe. There's obviously the Amazon rainforest, the coastal areas, super diverse. And it's kind of, like I said, it's just like the US where you have so much within one country. Once we got to Medellin, our cab took us through a extremely long tunnel. However, I've read that this tunnel is an excellent alternative to what was there before. Apparently you had to go around the mountains to get to Medellin, and it took possibly 90 minutes depending on how bad traffic was. So grateful for the tunnel, even though it was kind of long. I mean, you're in there for about 20 to 25 minutes. Once you emerge from the tunnel, the views are stunning. It's a beautiful look into the valley. To see the metro across the entire panorama as you're coming down the mountain was beautiful. Just compared to Cartagena, it just felt like a more modern city. There was some grunginess in some of the areas, but it just felt different. Maybe it was the color of the buildings. Maybe it was I don't know, it just felt different. And there's clearly more infrastructure here in Medellin than there is Cartagena. And I think a lot of that is due to the past financial assistance that the city got from Pablo Escobar. And yeah, so Pablo Escobar definitely made his mark in Colombia, especially in Medellin, the Medellin cartel. And a lot of the people here, they're aware of this, and there has been a change of mindset, I think. At least that's what we were told over the past 20 to 30 years after his death. A lot of people have shunned his actions and have made it clear that they don't want their country to be remembered for Pablo Escobar because they have so much more to offer. At least that's what we got from them as we traveled around Medellin. We ended up staying in the El Poblado neighborhood, which is popular for tourists coming into town. And really everything that you could have wanted was in walking distance. There were supermarkets, there were restaurants, there were clubs, rooftop lounges, and 15-minute walk or so to the metro if you decided to take that. Cabs and Ubers were everywhere throughout the city, so pretty easy to get around. We ended up doing 3 tours while we were in Medellin. The first was the El Peñol de Guatapé, which is basically a big rock. At the end of the day, it's a big rock. However, it's a pretty cool formation that's about 2 hours away from Medellin. And the claim to fame for this is the the stairs that are cut into the side of the rock, where it's about 750 stairs. You walk up. It is a impressive workout. It's a nice workout. And we went on a day, I guess, just a lot of tours there. It was quite crowded. However, we made it to the top, and the views up there were spectacular. You get to see the reservoir and the lush mountainous terrain that surrounds the area. I definitely recommend, just for something different to do, and like I said, to get a nice workout while you've been eating all those arepas and empanadas. Very cool experience to go up the big rock. And we also went to the city of Guatapé, which was a nice experience. They're known for these art installations called zócalos, which basically, from my understanding, were a representation of the residents of the house. So for example, if you were a doctor, you might have a caduceus in the zócalos on the side of your house. I think that that's pretty unique to the city, and it adds a nice touch to the small town. Back in Medellin, we did a bike tour of the city, which was pretty cool. We started in the Los Conquistadores neighborhood, and we ended up going into downtown to the marketplace, to the Botero Museum. What I would recommend, however, because to get to Pueblito Paisa, which is the old town, basically, how the city looked like back when the Spanish colonized the area, there's a huge hill that you probably want an e-bike for. If you want to get your workout in, like I said, by all means, go ahead and do that. However, I went for the e-bike, and I'm glad I did because that was a hill to get up. We did another tour, but first I wanted to go over some pros of Medellin. Climate there is amazing, in my opinion. They call it the city of eternal spring, and that's because within the valley, the climate is quite temperate. It's a little humid, but not oppressive. The temperatures stayed within the 70 to 80 range. It didn't get too much warmer than that in the valley. And there were some showers that rolled through, but it never was a washout, at least while we were there. And it's like that year round, which is a beautiful thing. The city felt quite vibrant with events going on all the time. There didn't seem to be a shortage of things to do, concerts and the like, sporting events, but there were also walking areas, walking trails, parks that were created to make it an enjoyable experience, not just for tourists, but also the residents that live there. The El Poblado and Parque Lleras areas were quite nice. I heard Laurales, I believe that's how you say it, the area is pretty cool as well. On the bike tour, we went through that neighborhood as well as Los Conquistadores, which seemed to be pretty friendly toward tourists and a little bit upscale too. So you get a nice look at the city while on the bike tour and see the different areas. There's beautiful views in every direction in Medellin. I still, just looking back at the pictures that I took or the videos I took, looking to see the incredible vistas was breathtaking. To me, the city felt like a mix between San Diego from a climate standpoint, San Francisco with the hilly terrain, and then the culture was definitely a Miami vibe. So if you put all those three together, I think that's how you get Medellin. Here's a weird pro, the Medellin Metro. In order to ride it, you need to get what's called a Civica card, which was a little bit of a hassle at first. It's a reloadable card, and you can travel up and down the metro. There's two major lines on the metro. There's a north-south line and an east-west line. I know it's kind of weird to put the metro as a pro on here, but I think that it adds tremendous value to the city, makes it easier for residents to get around, makes it easier for tourists to get around, and it's extremely clean. That's what really struck me about it, because it's been open for a minute now, I think 2006, but there's not a speck of dirt, gum, trash anywhere on the metro because the residents take such good care of it because they want it to last forever. It's a part of the culture in Medellin. And I've heard from some of the tour guides that if they see somebody eating on the train or drinking water on the train, they'll tell them to get off or to stop doing it first. But if they continue, they'll tell them to get off because they take so much pride in the metro. And then there's also cable cars. So the third tour that we went on was to the Don Leandro coffee farm in the mountains, and you had to get to Parque RV, which was about a 20 to 25 minute cable car ride. So you have to get off at the Acevedo station off the metro, and then you have to take a cable car, I believe, to Santo Domingo, and then from Santo Domingo, one of the barrios, you catch an additional cable car that goes through the mountains to get to Parque RV. And that was an amazing experience, and it depends on the time of day that you go, but when we went, there was a lot of fog rolling in on the mountains, so it was kind of creepy going up into the mountains and seeing all that, but still a unique experience, beautiful as you pass through the forest and you kind of watch the metro disappear and going up through all the fog to get to Parque RV, which is a beautiful location in its own right. The coffee farm was a great experience, and for anybody that's a coffee lover, would definitely recommend to see the entire process from start to finish. You get to plant your own coffee tree there, which is a cool experience. And they do like massages with coffee beans, and they have, of course, something to buy. They're selling things at the end of it, but still a dope experience nonetheless. So some of the cons of Medellin would definitely have to be the long trip from the airport compared to Cartagena. Cartagena, the airport was basically just on the north side of town. In Medellin, you have to take the long tunnel ride to get to the city, or if the tunnel's inaccessible, you have to take the long back road, which could take an hour or longer to get there. Also, something that I pointed out, the traffic was worse in Medellin than it was in Cartagena. Granted, Medellin is a larger city. However, I felt like the drivers were worse in Medellin, a lot more aggressive, cutting people off, no use of signals, jamming intersections. But at the same time, the traffic never stopped, which was interesting to me. Unless you were at a traffic signal, of course. Traffic moved even at a slow pace even on the busiest highways, which was interesting. But I think that's just what happens when you have the retornos or the U-turns, and just a freeway system in general. The traffic keeps moving. If I were to ask myself, would I go back to Medellin? The answer is yes, in a heartbeat. I love the city immensely. It was a big city, but it still felt quite familiar there. I really don't know why. And I mean, I didn't go everywhere in the city, but we were able to go to, I believe it was the Jardín Botanical Garden, which was a cool experience. So we got a chance to explore a little off the beaten path stuff. However, you know, the city is huge, and I'm sure there's some areas that you just wouldn't want to go to. Still, the things that I was able to experience, I would do them all again. Without question, I had a great time. I would recommend trying to find some great tours, and I can link a couple in the description section, some of the ones that we went on, but the tours really enhance the experience, if you will. If you're looking for Instagrammable views, you'll find them in almost every direction in Medellin. And the climate, it was a pleasant climate there year round, something that I really enjoyed. When we were there, the climate was pleasant too. So I think that it made, all in all, it made for a very cool city. Personally, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. And of all the cities that I've been to, it's definitely one of my favorites. So which is my favorite? Clearly Medellin is, I favor Medellin over Cartagena. However, like I said, I'd go back again with a larger group. Same with the other major cities in Colombia, Cali, Bogota, Barranquilla. I would go again with, if I had a decent sized group that would want to go, or with Colombians that already know the lay of the land. So my verdict and my conclusion, I haven't seen all of Colombia, but the little that I've seen, I've absolutely enjoyed it. Both cities, Cartagena and Medellin, were absolutely stunning. Medellin, obviously, slight advantage there. And I've done a bit of travel already, a decent amount of travel. Colombia is definitely top on my list of countries I've ever been to. And Medellin was amazing. I would definitely recommend it for solos, couples, groups that are looking to go to Colombia. I understand the apprehension, but we felt pretty safe everywhere that we went. And as long as you practice safe travel etiquette, safe travel thinking, I think you'll be just fine. So that wraps up the video. Thanks for watching till the end. Just want to know, have you ever been to Colombia? Do you plan on going? Have you been to Medellin? What kind of things did you do? I'd love to hear all your travel commentary in the comment section below. And let me know if you have any questions about our experience there. I know I kind of glanced over everything, but if you have anything specifically you'd like to know about, let me know. Also give me feedback so I know how I'm doing with these videos, because it can be a lot to put together everything, but at the same time, I'm always willing to learn, and I appreciate the feedback that people give. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Immersive, MMERSIVE, and hope to catch you the next time. Peace.